Welcome back, I'm Aron Bernstein, and we're going to continue with Augmented 6th chords. Last time it was A piacere with the Italian 6th. Now let's hit the road for Germany and France.
Guten Tag.
And bonjour. Last time we saw how a Phrygian half cadence, 4-6 to 5, could be embellished by turning the 4-6 chord into an Italian 6th. In the key of A minor, just take this first inversion D minor chord and raise its root a half step to D sharp. Fa, scale degree 4, becomes Fi. Now it's an Italian augmented 6th chord, an intensified predominant amped up on a little chromaticism. Here it resolves to cadential 6-4 before landing on 5. Zooming in, here's the solfege again for the Italian 6th. Le, Do, Fi, scale degrees 6, 1, and the raised 4. Now going backward, we already know this used to be just a 4-6 chord, D minor. But what if instead of just being a triad, our 4-6 was originally a 7th chord? That would make it a D minor 7th in first inversion, 4-6-5. Its solfege is Le, Do, Me, Fa, scale degrees 6, 1, 3, and 4. Makes for a more colorful Phrygian cadence now. And if we do the same thing we did to the plain old 4-6 chord, raise Fa to Fi, we get the solfege Le, Do, Me, Fi, and it sounds like this when it resolves to cadential 6-4. It's full, it's rich, and it's German. This is the German augmented 6th. While the Italian 6th had 3 notes, Le, Do, Fi, the German has 4, Le, Do, Me, Fi, and it sounds just like a complete dominant 7th chord. Of course, if this were a true F7, that top note would be spelled E flat, making a minor 7th above the bass, and the chord would resolve like this, to B flat major or minor. But this is a German 6th, and we spell the top note D sharp, making an augmented 6th above the bass. That interval, Le-Fi, resolves outward to the octave, just like in the Italian 6th. Alright, we need someone to show the German 6th at work. And who better? Beethoven is in one of his favorite keys, C minor. He comes off of 1-6 onto a German augmented 6th, and puts it to textbook use as a predominant, resolving to cadential 6-4, then to 5. As we'll see a bit later, this is almost always the way to handle a German 6th, going to cadential 6-4. Here's the voice leading. We'll reduce Beethoven's arpeggios on the piano left hand to block chords. Here's the German 6th with Le, Do, Me, Fi. In C minor, that's A flat, C, E flat, and F sharp. When the German 6th resolves to cadential 6-4, Le goes down to So, Fi goes up to So, and that's it. Do and Me stay put. Those inner voices can then move to Ti and Re when we resolve to the 5 chord. All together now? And with the right hand melody added. Now, a moment ago I mentioned that the German 6th was almost always followed by cadential 6-4. And you might be wondering, why? Well, let's see what happens if we resolve our German 6th directly to 5 without stopping first at cadential 6-4. Doesn't sound too bad. Let's see. The bass goes Le to So, the alto Me to Re. Oh, you guessed it.
Parallel fifths.
Between the bass and alto. You see, with the Italian 6th, we didn't have this problem. There is no perfect 5th in the Italian 6th chord, so it can go directly to 5. But the German 6th does contain a perfect 5th, and if it resolves directly to 5,
parallel fifths.
So to get around this problem, the German 6th typically resolves first to cadential 6-4. That way, the augmented 6th can resolve first, and then the other voices can resolve, giving us our 5 chord and avoiding those
pesky parallels.
Another one coming up. How about a little Mozart for some next level morbid? The Lacrimosa from the Requiem is in D minor. Notice how the soprano voice has this consistent rising chromatic line. This is made possible by Mozart's choice of harmonies. We have C minor, C7, which tonicizes F major, then F major, F sharp diminished 7, which tonicizes G major, and then G, our major 4 chord. From there, Mozart easily goes to the German 6th, and as expected, that resolves to cadential 6-4, and then the 5 chord. A quick look at the voice leading shows Mozart doing virtually the same thing as in the Beethoven sonata. Once again, the German 6th has lay, do, may, fi. In D minor, that's B flat, D, F, and G sharp. Lay resolves down to so, fi up to so, do and may just park it where they are, and that gives us cadential 6-4. The only difference from the Beethoven is, when Mozart resolves to 5, the soprano cliff dives an octave down, landing on the A below the alto. So the soprano's chromatic ascent we saw earlier is dramatically reversed. The soprano line is set to the words, "When rising from the ashes, the guilty man will be judged." Chromatically rising from the ashes. And big drop on guilty. It's a requiem mass, heavy stuff. Next, a quick word about figured bass for the German 6th. As we saw before, the German 6th is derived from the 4-7 chord in first inversion. In the key of D minor, here's the 4 chord, G minor. Give it a 7th, put it in first inversion, and the figured bass is 4-6-5. Raising fa to fi doesn't really change anything, so we'll keep this figured bass. You can write German 6, German 6-5 with a sharp on the 6 to indicate it's an augmented 6th, or German 6 with a plus sign before the 6. So with all this in mind, let's get a little practice with the German 6th in various keys. We'll start in E minor. The German 6th, once again, is lay, do, may, fi. We need lay, scale degree 6, that'll be C, then do, scale degree 1, that's E. Next comes may, scale degree 3, that's a G. And finally we need to take fa, scale degree 4, and make it fi. So that's A, raise it a half step to A sharp, and there's our German 6th. Now we resolve it to cadential 6-4. Lay resolves down to so, fi resolves up to so, and we happy. Do and may pull a couch potato, and there's our cadential 6-4. All right, bring it on. G minor is our next key. Lay is going to be E flat. Do is G. May, that'll be B flat. And we turn fa into fi. C up to C sharp. Notice this time I've spread the upper 3 voices out into an open voicing. Long as you have lay, do, may, fi, the upper voices can be in any order. That's our German 6th. Now lay goes down to so, fi up to so. Once again, do and may don't mind being boring, and we've resolved to cadential 6-4. Bonus round. Let's hit C sharp minor this time. Lay is A, do is C sharp, may is going to be E, and fa is F sharp. Raise fa a half step to fi, and you want to say G, don't you? But of course, we have to keep fa's original letter name, so F sharp becomes
F double sharp.
Can't call it G because that's no longer an augmented 6th above the bass. All right, resolve to cadential 6-4. Lay down to so, fi up to so, and that's all. You're okay, just one measly double sharp. Now, you hang around composers long enough, you'll find out that if they're not breaking any rules, they're definitely bending them. Remember how you shouldn't go directly from the German 6 to the 5 chord? Neither does Albert Leschhorn. In the 4th measure, Leschhorn does indeed follow a German 6 with the 5 chord without a cadential 6-4 in between. Ordinarily, that would leave us with
parallel fifths
between the bass and tenor. But Leschhorn craftily avoids this by resolving the tenor first, and then the bass. Is it breaking the rules? Sort of, but not really. Absolutely not at all. The truth is, if you reduce any music to its essentials, you'll probably find parallel fifths and octaves all over the place. But composers like Leschorn use some voice-leading magic to break up these parallels and maintain the independence of the voices. So here's the skeleton of the fourth measure, with obvious parallel fifths between tenor and bass. Leaving it like this wasn't an option, so he made the tenor voice resolve from me to re early, and the bass resolves from lay to so afterward. Now we go from a perfect fifth to an augmented fourth, before arriving at the next perfect fifth. It's flouting the law a little bit, but remember, if an old dead composer did it, so can you. Hopping up north, is something rotten in the state of Denmark? Not really. Danish composer Friedrich Kuhlau had a slightly different solution for a German 6 going directly to the 5 chord. This passage is in F minor, and in the third measure, Kuhlau changes his passport from Germany to Italy. He starts with a German 6th and ends up with an Italian 6th before resolving to the 5 chord. How does that help? Well, on the advice of counsel, I'll take the 5th. And so did Kuhlau. Here's our German 6th in the key of F minor, lay, do, me, fi. Notice once again the upper voices can be arranged in any order. Now go straight to 5 and you suffer
parallel fifths.
But Kuhlau simply plucked out the 5th above the bass, A flat, turning the chord into an Italian 6th, with a doubled 3rd. No more danger of parallel fifths here, so the itinerary becomes Germany, Italy, and we take the red-eye home. Just a little voice exchange between soprano and alto. They trade do and fi, and that takes us to 5. Alright, we've been in minor keys too long. Here's a German 6th in the key of C major. Grab your sousaphone. In this reduction, we clearly see a German 6th resolving to cadential 6/4. So it works just as well in a major key, but it sounds a bit more jarring than in minor. Putting John Philip under a microscope, we see a typical voicing for the German 6th. Lay, do, me, fi. Notice that we had to borrow a couple of notes from the parallel minor key, C minor. In minor keys, you only need to make one chromatic change to get the German 6th, fa to fi. But in a major key, we also have to turn la to lay, moving A down to A flat. And we also need mi to become me, E natural to E flat. And finally, fa goes up a half step to fi, F to F sharp. Now we have the German 6th in the key of C major, so it took 3 chromatic changes this time instead of only 1. For this reason, the German 6th in a major key sounds more abrupt when it resolves to cadential 6/4. So here's the voice leading. Lay down to so, fi up to so, and do stays put, just like in a minor key. But notice me goes back to mi, E flat up to E natural. Once again, that extra voice movement makes the German 6 sound a bit more foreign here than in a minor key. A little bit more practice. If you find yourself in the key of A major and you want a German augmented 6th, you need lay, do, me, fi. La has to go down a half step to lay, so F sharp becomes F natural. We already have do, that's A. Mi has to become me, so C sharp becomes C natural. And then fa has to become fi, D up to D sharp. Whew. Bit more work in major keys, but there's your German 6th. Resolve to cadential 6/4, lay down to so, fi up to so, do couldn't care less, and this time don't forget, me goes back to mi. Alright, time to hit the road again. We've been through the boot. We've been to Frankfurt. But sometimes you just gotta have a baguette on the Pont Neuf, even if you're not French and there's no national significance to this last basic type of augmented 6 chord. Bien sûr. There's a French 6th, back to our pal Albert. We're in E minor, and he arrives at an F sharp half diminished 7th chord. That's the 2/7 chord, but in second inversion, with C in the bass. Lay, do, re, fa. So that'll be 2, 4, 3. Now, from there, he makes one embellishment. He takes fa and raises it a half step to fi, just like in the other augmented 6th chords. A to A sharp. Now the solfege is le, do, re, fi, and that is the French 6th. It's derived from the 2, 4, 3 chord, while, as you know, the German and Italian 6th are embellishments of the 4 chord. And it's got a different flavor, more dissonant than the others. Let's zoom in and see why. The French augmented 6th, once again, has le, do, re, fi. In E minor, that's going to be C, E, F sharp, and fa raised to fi, A to A sharp. The chord is crunchier than the German because it not only has an augmented 6th above the bass, but also an augmented 4th. So these two dissonant intervals really make the French 6th stand out. And in this example, it resolves directly to 5. Le down to so, fi up to so, same as in the German and Italian 6th. Now the inner voices. Do goes down to T, the third of our 5 chord, but re is already where it needs to be. It's already the 5th of our 5 chord, so it just stays put. So like the Italian 6th, the French doesn't contain a perfect 5th. No danger of parallel 5ths, so the French can resolve directly to 5, unlike the German, which as you know usually has to stop over at cadential 6-4 first. In fact, if we bring back that earlier piece by Albert Leschhorn, he actually sent his German 6th to France in order to avoid parallels. Here's that German 6th, le, do, me, fi, and he simply has me step down to re. Now it's le, do, re, fi, a French 6th, and he can now safely resolve to 5. That crafty Albert. Now, you knew we'd have to bring back Beethoven because, let's face it,
I'm not going anywhere.
but this time we're going to finish his music and see if we get it right. Beethoven's in the key of E flat major, and he arrives at 4-6, an A flat major chord in first inversion. After that, he needs a French 6 chord to resolve to 5. Let's take over. Now, we're in a major key, so once again, we'll have to make more chromatic changes than if we were in minor. Our French 6th is going to be le, do, re, fi. The previous chord already has the bass on la, so we'll just need to lower that a half step to le, C to C flat. Next, we already have do, E flat, so that can be our tenor voice. Then we need an alto voice to take re, F. And last, we turn fa into fi, A flat up to A natural. Le, do, re, fi. There's our French 6th.
Resolve to 5.
Le down to so, C flat to B flat. There's the root. Do down to T, E flat to D. There's our third. We already have the 5th of our 5 chord, re, so the F can park it. And finally, fi goes up to so, A natural up to B flat. Let's hear it. Beethoven, you're deconstructed.
Rats.
Okay, our passport books are all stamped up. We've enjoyed some fine wine, some strudel, and we've heard the bells of Notre Dame. So remember when I said there were only 3 types of augmented 6th chord?
I lied.
There's actually a 4th, but don't worry, it's really a German 6th. Pack your bags one more time. We're going to stay in the key of E flat major. Scott Joplin arrives at what sounds like a German 6th resolving to cadential 6-4. And guess what? For all intents and purposes, this is a German 6th. If you didn't have the music in front of you, you wouldn't notice how it's spelled. One more stamp for our passport. Here's a German 6th resolving to cadential 6-4 in E flat major. But Scott Joplin has a spelling contest with this German 6th. Remember how me resolves up to mi when we're in a major key? G flat up to G. Well, we've got chromatic spelling there. 2 different notes with the same letter name. Nothing wrong with that, but often it's preferable to have diatonic spelling, 2 adjacent letter names. To that end, Joplin renames the G flat F sharp in his German 6 chord. And when he resolves to cadential 6-4, it's F sharp up to G, rather than G flat up to G. Again, this doesn't change how anything sounds. It's just a bit more logical to read. So instead of the German 6th having May, G flat, the flatted scale degree 3, it has the raised scale degree 2, F sharp, which we're going to call Re in solfege. Now look at the intervals above the bass. Instead of a perfect fifth, C flat up to G flat, we now have a doubly augmented fourth, C flat up to F sharp. You don't often see it spelled this way, but technically we now have a German 6th with French spelling. And hold on to your wristwatches, this is called the Swiss Augmented 6th chord. Lay, do, re, fi. So to make a long story longer, we have a whole new nationality just to explain what a German 6th is doing in a major key. Alright, we're done. A final recap. The Italian 6th has lay, do, fi. It can go either straight to 5 or to cadential 6-4. It's got only 3 notes, so if you're going to double one, double do, the third above the bass. Next, the German 6th. Lay, do, may, fi. And because of parallel fifths, the safest thing to do is to resolve it to cadential 6-4 before going to 5. Then quel dommage, the French 6th. This one is lay, do, re, fi, and like the Italian, can go either to 5 or cadential 6-4. And very last, if you have a German 6th in a major key, it may be preferable to respell may as re to get diatonic spelling when you resolve it to cadential 6-4. Lay, do, re, fi. This is our Swiss 6th. Remember, it sounds like a German and resolves like a German. It just has French spelling. Man, Customs is going to be working overtime. Have a look at the worksheets for this lesson, and you'll get some good practice using the German, French, and Swiss 6th in major and minor keys. Thanks for taking this tour of Europe with me, and I'll see you next time.